So welcome all of you to this celebration and the introduction of the award winners of the 9th Saroyan Writing Prize competition that we run here at the Stanford Libraries. My name is Michael Keller. I'm the University Librarian and Vice Provost at Stanford. I'm delighted to welcome you all here. Before I go further, I'd like to give you a couple of key housekeeping notions. The first is that we ask you to ask your questions via the Q&A button on your Zoom screen. Chat is disabled. Also, we are recording this event, and the URL for the recording will be sent to you a few days after the event itself. Again, thank you all for coming. 2020 marked the 9th William Saroyan International Prize for Writing. The prize came about as an agreement between the William Saroyan Foundation and the Stanford Libraries in conjunction with our acquiring William Saroyan's extensive archive, which resides here for researchers to explore his life and work. The basic idea of the prize is to encourage authors who are in the early stages of their creative careers to submit works that they believe would be well recognized by the Saroyan Foundation in its quest, really, to support what we might call young authors, but they may be young authors with ages that might not be so young. We've had 8 previous prizes. We've had some very distinguished winners, as we do this time. Just to give you some shape to what all this means, our wonderful staff, led by Sonia Lee, who's organizing this presentation, deals with almost 250 entries of authors and their works. These roll in over the course of about a year. The recommendations that finally come to me for my selection are made by a collection of 6 judges, and we especially thank them for their efforts, for their conversations among themselves, for their diligence, for their creativity. So for fiction, we had Sambul Ali Karamali, Patrick Hunt, who's been with us for quite a while, and we're delighted that he stays with us, and Elizabeth McKenzie. In the nonfiction category, Mark Arax, Laura Jakila, and who, by the way, both those people are past winners of the Saroyan Prize, and Hank Saroyan, who is William Saroyan's nephew. I think Hank Saroyan's career as a filmmaker may be more well known than his career as a literary judge, but he's a wonderful man and quite a good humored fellow. And if I remember correctly, his company is called something like White Sneakers or something similar. At any rate, we're delighted to have these good brains, these creative artists, join us as judges for these books. Now, these judges did not read 247 books. That would have been, a bit much, I think. So we have a delightful situation in which we'll invite alumni of Stanford to review the books. So first of all, we give thanks to all the 225 volunteer book reviewers. And we thank them for their effort in reading the books. And often these books are read twice by 2 different people. So we get a kind of compilation of opinions about the books. These book reviewers do this for no compensation at all. I imagine there might be some book clubs involved in all this, and I'm delighted if that's the case. Dozens of these volunteers have volunteered to review books for the last 7 reviews. So it's a great gift to Stanford and to the Stanford Libraries to have these folks join us in this delightful task of selecting winners. Now, that said, the 225 reviewers pass on their recommendations, and through a kind of arithmetic process, about 6 books get chosen each year to go to the judges. And the judges each have to read in their categories 3 books each. And then they debate among themselves about who's going to win what. So I need to show you the books that were in the final round. So this book, The 100 Wells of Salaga, published by the Other Press in 2019, here we go, by written by Ayesha Haruna Atta, and Some Trick, published by New Directions in 2019 by Helen DeWitt, were in the final pool. And these are actually quite good books, and I recommend them to you most heartily. They're good reads, and I think you all should try them. In the nonfiction category, there are a couple of books. One is a book by Alexander Chee, published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt in 2018, How to Write an Autobiographical Novel. So for those of you who are thinking of writing a memoir, say, this book might be a good choice for you. It's an excellent book, and I recommend it. And the other one that was considered, and it was a nonfiction finalist, is Carmen Maria Machado, In the Dream House, published by Grey Wolf Press in 2019. Another very interesting book, highly recommended. So the winners. I'm happy to congratulate the 2 winners. The winner in the fiction category is Friday Black by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. It's published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt in 2018. The winner in the nonfiction category is Homesick, a memoir written by Jennifer Croft and published by Unnamed Press in 2019. I asked Jennifer about this Unnamed Press business, and it turns out that's actually a company called Unnamed Media. So this is a real publisher. They just don't want you to know more than that they're unnamed. It's a good book. Whoever among their editors, acquisitions editors, chose it and helped Jennifer bring it to press did a very fine job. So let me introduce Nana first. He will give his reading after I introduce him, and then I will introduce Jennifer. About Friday Black, a piercingly raw debut story collection from a young writer with an explosive voice, a treacherously surreal and at times heartbreakingly satirical look at what it is like to be young and Black in America. By placing ordinary characters in extraordinary situations, Adjei-Brenyah reveals the violence, injustice, and painful absurdities that Black men and women contend with every day in this country. His stories tackle urgent instances of racism and cultural unrest and explore the many ways we fight for humanity in an unforgiving world. Entirely fresh in its style and perspective, Friday Black confronts readers with a complicated, insistent, wrenching chorus of emotions, the final note of which, remarkably and wonderfully, is hope. In addition to the Saroyan Prize, Friday Black and Nana have received many awards, including the 2019 Penn Gene Stein Book Award, a National Book Foundation 5 Under 35 Honoree Award, and he is a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle's John Leonard Award for Best First Book. Originally from Spring Valley, New York, he graduated from SUNY Albany and went on to receive his MFA from Syracuse University. His work has appeared or is forthcoming from numerous publications, including the New York Times Book Review, Esquire, Literary Hub, the Paris Review, Guernica, and Longreads. Nana, you're most welcome to be with us. And now it's over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that incredible introduction. And thank you to Sonia and Mimi and also Jennifer. I'm super honored to get to share the stage with you today. I'm just incredibly grateful to the entire William Saroyan organization because now I get to tell my mom I'm in some way associated with Stanford, kinda. I think she'll like that. I'm also very grateful for the chance to feel like I need to wear pants. I guess you can't tell, but I am, so I'm grateful for that as well. But sincerely, it means a lot to me. I've so many thanks. It's the book has taken me so many places, but I'm very, very keenly aware of exactly where I was prior to this book coming in. And so there's people like Naomi Gibbs, my editor, who took a chance on a weird story collection and helped change my life. My agent Meredith Cathell Simonoff, the entire team on Horn Mifflin, Michael and Taryn. You guys have really changed my life, and I'm super grateful for that. And I have more thank yous to say. I'm going to read a little bit of a story. I'm going to read just an excerpt of a story called The Hospital Where, then another really short story called Things My Mother Said. And I'm going to read them both. It might be a little redundant because it's almost kind of the same story in two ways, if you will. And just for set up for this little section of The Hospital Where, it's about a young person who wants to be a writer. I wonder who that could be. And sort of his weird, maybe harsh relationship to his muse that's called the 12-tongued God. And his father is actually in the hospital. And I'm thinking about this today because, it's not lost on me that this event is a celebration, but it's a kind of a hard and weird time to be celebrating at all. We're doing this over Zoom for a reason. And I hope that, if this has been a particularly hard season for you because of the health of loved ones, I'm sort of sending my love to you. This is called The Hospital Where, and I'll read just a piece of it before I say some more thank yous. What are you writing? My father asked. I looked up from my notebook. I don't know, I said, which was the truest thing anyone has ever said. It was still new for me to write in front of my parents or anyone. It felt like announcing I was running for some huge office as a Green Party candidate. Well, what is it about? My father turned toward me and winced as he did. You write a lot now. What do you write about? His curiosity stunned me. I also really had no idea how to answer. What I could never tell my father was that I'd given myself to the 12-tongued God. It had happened many years before. We'd been in a house that the bank would soon want back. The nights were dark because the gas and electric company had decided enough was enough. I learned that many of the things I love, the comforts that made me feel good about myself, could disappear very slowly and also suddenly. I'd learned to hate then, to hate others for having things, to hate myself for not. One day, like an angel, the 12-tongued God emerged from the midnight black around me, as mysterious and vital as my own breath. I can give you new eyes that will work, that won't cry. I can put your hurt to use, 12-tongued said. I can give you what you want. After every other word, it pulled off a mask to reveal yet another beautiful face. Its voice sounded like every voice I'd ever heard speaking all at once. I can give you the power to be anywhere, to heal the world, to own time, to turn lies to truth, to make day into night and night into day. I nodded viciously. You will have the power to change everything, to make the life you want. What do I have to do? I asked. You are not yet ready, said the 12-tongued God, revealing a new mask, one that wore a deep frown and jubilant eyes. Then it disappeared. I waited. After we lost the house, we spent a year cramped into a small apartment. Then we were displaced again. The night I saw another pink eviction notice, I prayed to the mysterious being that had found me those years before. 12 Tongue appeared again in the basement we called home. It smiled and frowned and laughed and cried. It stood in front of me. I watched it closely. As if to impress me, it winked. And where before there had been a hot plate, now there was a stainless steel oven and range. The god laughed. The hot plate was back. The range gone. I begged on my knees for its power. Serve me, and you will live in a different world forever. I'll do anything, I said. I could feel the skin on my back beginning to sear. I could smell my own burn. Then prove it. The 12-tongue god opened its mouth and reached a hand in. From its throat, it pulled out what looked like a human hand, but was actually the hilt of a sharp blade, the edge growing from the hand's middle finger. Please, I begged. The god watched me closely. The face it wore had an insane smile and drowning eyes. It held the knife and stared at me. Then it stuck its tongue out and quickly cut it off. I watched its bleeding mouth. For Earth, said the 12-tongue god, a new tongue growing in its mouth. You will never be the same. Please, I begged again. The god handed me the blade. I stuck my tongue out and placed the sharp edge near my bottom teeth. I pulled up and screamed. The tongue fell. The 12-tongue god reached down and snatched it before it could hit the floor. The pact is made, the 12-tongue god said, and it stuffed its own newly cut tongue into my mouth. I wish I could share what it was like to feel the new tongue weaving into my flesh. I felt the Roman 12 brand into my back. Suddenly, I could see in the dark. Day became night. I felt free. Thank you, I said. Well, see, the 12-tongue god said, as it popped my old tongue into its mouth and chewed. Then it disappeared. That night, I wrote my first story. I saw I was changed to the new power. I had to stay with the story, work it harder and harder until it was something greater than I could have imagined. From that day forward, I prayed to the 12-tongue god every night and every morning, asking for more tongues, for sharper tongues. When I didn't write, my brain pulsed and ached. When I wrote badly, it screamed fiery chords. But then when I made sentences that lived, it quieted and I could feel my ability growing. Still, I craved more tongues, new worlds to live in, and more power to change the one I was in now. I loved it. It was very lonely. And now I'll read just a little bit of another story. But before I do that, that small excerpt is like maybe a slightly understated example of how really intensely I wanted kind of exactly what this moment right now is representing. Sometimes it's sort of difficult for me to, good news around writing, and sometimes it's difficult for me to really swallow or take because it's almost like too raw and too real. And I know how badly I wanted some of these things to happen. And also it's not without difficulty because now that I'm on sort of this side of the writing life, I understand that in doing it and just doing the work without any sort of recognition is where the real power is, although I'm eternally grateful for the sort of power that awards like this and awareness and sort of amplification of the work that these kind of programs bring literature. So I'm, this book came out in October 2018, and since that time, I've just been so grateful. And so when I see this thing, this beautiful award that was given, besides thinking about the book, I think of all these people who have made it possible for me to be in this position. I think of my father, who we lost about maybe 8 months after the book was released to cancer. My mother, who again, during this period, I haven't been able to see her for a year now, but I just know she's always kind of there in my corner. I already spoke about my editor, my agent, that whole team, about my friends and how they've been supportive in every turn of this. Seffi, Peyton Powell, how, really just helped me survive this, and how without you, I don't know, I'm still a mess regardless, but it would be much worse. So, I'm really, really, really grateful for this prize, the people around me, And I hope that if there's some small chance that someone who is wanting to be a writer in that position that I was in, both that excerpt and the one I'm going to read in a second, I hope that you know that despite how you might feel right now, just doing the work, that's everything. And, the awards and all those things, those will come. But, if you want to write and you're doing the writing, you're already a writer. You don't need a sort of external validation to prove that. And I hope that me being in this space right now can remind you of that. So I'm going to read just this really short story. It's called Things My Mother Said. It's about things my mother said. My mother's favorite thing to say to me was, "I am not your friend." She'd often say, "You are my firstborn son, my only son," as a reminder not to die. She loved saying as a way to keep me humble, "I didn't have a mother. You're lucky. You have a mother." When the TV went dark, my mother said, "Good. Now you can read more." Then our house at the bottom of a hill lost all its life: gas, water, electric. One day I came home to the warm smell of chicken and rice. I hadn't been able to steal a second burger in the cafeteria at school that day. My stomach whined. At home, the fridge had become a casket bearing nothing. The range and oven had become decorations meant to make a dying box look like a home. Hunger colored those days. "Where is this from?" I asked, already carving out a healthy portion from a worn gray pot. My mother pretended she didn't hear me. She was studying the pages of her massive white Bible at the kitchen table. Wide sheets of light pressed through the window and draped her. She spent her days reading that big Bible. Its pages were to film as her fingers fluttered from psalm to psalm. She'd be asleep by the splash of dusk. I, on the other hand, would be up for hours, trying to do homework by the blue glow of my cell phone, clinging to its light until it died. At night, hunger and I huddled together. I'd fall asleep thinking, one day I would change everything. That afternoon, I ate the chicken and rice. It tasted like pepper and smoke. "How did you make this, Mom?" I asked again. She looked up from her Bible. "Ah, dear, did you pray over your food? Did you say your Psalms today?" I ate the food quickly, greedily. I chewed the bones till they splintered in my mouth. Another thing my mother often said, "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Later, when I was in the backyard, hesitant to return to the dying box as the sun dipped away, I found a patch of charred grass in a small circle of blackened stones and pebbles. An ash moon branded into a sea of wild green grass. I touched the gray rock partially blackened by flame to see if it was still hot. I felt proud and ashamed. For the record, I know I was lucky. I know I'm lucky. I don't think you're stupid. I know I'm not your friend. I hope you can be proud of me. Thanks, guys.
Superb, Nana. Thank you very much. I would say you have found your voice, but I'm betting you're going to find some other voices as you go along.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to Jennifer Croft, the winner of the nonfiction category, and her book, Homesick, a Memoir. As I said, it was published by the Unnamed Press in 2019. About Homesick. It's a coming-of-age story of an award-winning translator. Homesick is about learning to love language in its many forms, healing through words and the promises and perils of empathy and sisterhood. Sisters Amy and Zoe grow up in Oklahoma, where they are homeschooled for an unexpected reason. Zoe suffers from debilitating and mysterious seizures, spending her childhood in hospitals as she undergoes surgeries. Meanwhile, Amy flourishes intellectually, showing an innate ability to glean a world beyond the troubles of her home life, exploring the world through languages first. Amy's first love appears in the form of her Russian tutor, Sasha. But when she enters university at the age of 15, her life changes drastically and with tragic results. Jennifer Croft is the recipient of the 2018 Man Booker International Prize and is a National Book Award finalist for a translation from Polish of Olga Tokarczuk's Flights, as well as Cullman, Fulbright, Penn, MacDowell, and NEA grants and fellowships. She has also won the inaugural Michael Henry Heim Prize for Translation, the 2018 Fund in Translation Award, and a Tin House Scholarship for her memoir, Homesick. She holds a PhD from Northwestern University and an MFA from the University of Iowa. She is a founding editor of the Buenos Aires Review and has published her own work and numerous translations in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Review of Books, Granta, Vice, N+1, Electric Literature, LitHub, Bomb, Guernica, The New Republic, The Guardian, The Chicago Tribune, and elsewhere. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I can't really put into words how grateful I am for this wonderful prize. If anyone had asked me what my dream for my first book would be, I couldn't have even dreamed this up. This is, a writer I feel so much kinship with, William Saroyan, and kind of continuing his legacy is such an honor. And I have my newly adopted home state of California, and so it's a real treat to receive a prize in California, and also to share the stage with Nana, who I got to see read at the Miami Book Fair shortly after he first published Friday Black, and then got to see accept the Penn Jean Stein Award in New York in 2019. So I feel like I've gotten to bask in Nana's glow and admire his work for a few years now, and it feels really amazing to be here with him today. I'm just going to read a couple of short vignettes from my book. And I will begin with the very first thing that I wrote. I did write this book in Spanish first, and it was kind of a way of communicating about my childhood and adolescence to Argentine friends, since I was living in Buenos Aires. So I decided to begin with a kind of exotic scene for them of hiding from tornadoes. Even though she knows she's not supposed to, Amy looks forward to tornadoes. Even in the day, the sky gets black and the streets get empty. The wind pries back the leaves of the silver maple tree, and underneath they gleam. When it's a tornado watch, they don't do it. But when it's a tornado warning, the girls go and get inside the pantry, where they squeeze in among the cans and powders and cardboard boxes and wait until one of their parents says they can come out. The pantry is the only place in the whole house that does not have windows. You have to stay away from windows when a tornado comes, because the very thing tornadoes love best is breaking glass. And if that happens and you're sitting, for example, in the bathtub right below the bathroom window, you will almost inevitably get hurt. When the sirens start, Amy gets them organized. She has developed a system. Each of them is allowed 3 toys, not more, and Amy is in charge of the flashlight because Zoe might break it. Zoe always dallies over her dolls, feeling guilty for playing favorites, but Amy explains to her how in life you have to make choices, and eventually Zoe always does, although sometimes she tries to hide things in her tiny pants pockets. When she gets caught, she bursts out laughing or into tears, depending on Amy's face. She always gets caught. Then Amy quiets Zoe, and they kneel down on the dimpled linoleum, pull the door shut, and wait. Once the door is closed, Zoe's dolls have conversations. Often they discuss the weather. Amy just listens, lets her own dolls rest, feels her sister's hot, quick breaths on her neck. If their electricity isn't out, Amy insists the light be off anyway. Slowly, she gets sleepy like she does in the car. And just like when they drive somewhere, Amy, unlike Zoe, would rather just not get there, would rather just keep going, would like it if the warning never expired. Then the pantry door will fly wide open, and all across the top of it, the frying pan and the strainer and all the knives will glint and shiver like they want to fall. And their mother will reach down and grab Zoe, and then she'll carry her away. The book in English, unlike the Spanish version, which is called Serpientes y Escaleras, is filled with photographs. And I'm going to share a few of those as I read the next section, which has to do with Amy's photography. Amy takes a picture of the little red suitcase Zoe uses to run away from home. Zoe runs away from home once or twice a week. He takes the dog and goes and sits beneath a pear tree that every year at the tail end of summer produces inedible pears that their dad picks up and throws away. The pear tree is in between the front yard and the backyard, a no man's land, where Zoe believes that no one will think to look for her. She whiles away the 15 to 20 minutes it always takes her to run away from home, playing with the plastic animal figurines she has packed and distributing provisions evenly between her and the dog. To the dog, she gives the brown treats, which are flavored like lamb and vegetable. For herself, she reserves the green treats, which are chicken. The peanut butters they share. On the side of the suitcase containing the figurines and the milk bones is a little drawing of a girl in front of a white picket fence. Above her float the words, "Going to Grandma's." But the picture Amy takes does not show this because what interests Amy is the things the suitcase contains. So while Zoe is in the bathroom, Amy snaps it open and lays it splayed atop their rumpled constellation print sheets. She points her Polaroid down but can't fit it, so she gets on the bed and stands over it, points, and pulls the shutter swiftly with her forefinger. Of the numerous plastic animal figurines in her collection, Zoe has chosen one elephant and a family of giraffes. Then, in addition to the small box of milk bones, there is a toothbrush, one sock with a friendly-looking shark that prowls the ankle, and a framed 5x7 photograph, black and white, of Dorothy holding Toto up to her cheek, the two of them gazing off into the distance. The photograph takes up a massive percentage of the space inside the little red suitcase, and Amy wonders why her sister takes it when she runs away from home, since it is just a piece of someone else's junk they got at a garage sale. Then Zoe comes back from the bathroom and catches Amy red-handed, still standing over her stuff. And she screams and hollers like a wild banshee until Amy offers her a piece of tropical fruit punch gum. I know my parents and my sister and my husband are all watching this, so I definitely am very, very grateful to them for all of their support, and to my editor at Unnamed Press, Olivia Taylor-Smith, and my wonderful agent, Katie Grimm. And I'm just going to read one last very short vignette that sets up what's going to happen in the rest of the book. In the back of the ambulance, her sister has been taken over by a ghost. Their mom gets as strong as a superhero and holds her down. Amy doesn't understand what could be happening. A few minutes ago, she was still inside a bubble, organizing numbers, and now her sister has been taken over by a ghost. Amy and Zoe had always assumed it would be fun to ride in an ambulance or a fire truck or a police car because you would get to go fast and break all the rules and not stop at any lights. But now Zoe isn't Zoe, and everything is wrong. Zoe throws up but doesn't know she's throwing up. So the throw up just drips down her chin and onto the lavender-colored dress that used to be Amy's favorite. And the lady who works for the ambulance mops it off her. But Amy fears the towel will scratch her sister's face. Zoe's eyes, always big and brown and sparkly as the campfire, are white. Her body jerks to one side at a rhythm that is not a human rhythm. Amy screams, "Zoe, Zoe, Zoe," but Zoe isn't there. Their mom gets angry and says to shut up because she's making everything worse. Then every fiber of Amy's body screams in silence, "Zoe, Zoe, Zoe." Thank you very much.
Wow. How wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. So the time has come to see whether we have any questions so
I
that
do.
these two wonderful authors might answer them.
We have one question that has come in actually from Laura Jackella, who has on our part of our judging panel, but has a question for Jennifer. She says, "I love your book so much, the way it pushes the boundaries of memoir in so many beautiful and wrenching ways. I'm wondering if you could talk about writing the book first in Spanish and then shifting to English and how that affects the work and your process. I'm thinking of a poet I love, James Wright, who, after translating Spanish poets, completely transformed his own poems in the book The Branch Will Not Break. The leaps and risks he began to take in his later work were remarkable. He let go of form for the most part, at least traditional form. You probably know all of this. Anyway, I'm interested in your process with languages, images, point of view, and more."
Thank you so much for that amazing question. And thank you so much for also, deciding on my book. I have served as a judge for a number of different prizes now, and I know what hard work it is. And I still cannot believe that you and Hank and Mark selected Homesick, but I'm so happy that you did. So I wrote Serpientes y Escaleras as a novel, and I still kind of think of the book in many ways as an Argentine novel, and it's everything that I do is very influenced by my translation. So I've now been working as a translator for about 20 years. Young as I may appear, I have worked with a lot of amazing people like Olga Tokarczuk, the Nobel laureate, whom Mike mentioned earlier. And everyone I've worked with has given me a kind of apprenticeship in writing. So I've learned different skills from each author that I've chosen. And I've tried to be really mindful of that. And in Homesick, I incorporated many of those elements. And I also, when rewriting it in English, tried for a kind of not alienating syntax or word order, but a kind of word order that would generate a little bit of intrigue and distance for the reader to think about overcoming as they read. So that's something that I took not really from any specific author, but just from the structure of Slavic languages. So in English grammar used to be much more elaborate, and over the course of the centuries, it's kind of broken down. Whereas in Polish, nouns change their endings depending on what their function in the sentence is, kind of like in Latin, or German has it to some extent. So I wanted to play around with that word order as much as is possible in English. And that was also kind of an homage to the Spanish version. So I learned Spanish. I started studying Spanish in my 20s in Buenos Aires. And what I wrote was a strange combination of a very local version of Spanish and obviously foreign Spanish. So the prose is very just kind of weird, and Argentine readers see that and are reading about a tornado and are wondering how this narrator arrives in this place, and that sort of hopefully propels them forward. I also incorporated the photographs in an effort to not recreate, of course, there's no way to recreate anything exactly, but to generate another kind of adventure for the reader. So the photos go in reverse chronological order while the narrative goes in chronological order, and kind of begin to suggest that the narrator is not going to be staying in this place in Oklahoma for forever, and and raise that question. But I definitely think that what I'm working on now, I'm working on a lot of fiction now, and it's kind of becoming clear to me that the novel that I recently wrote is sort of an abstract translation of the Polish writer Witold Gombrowicz, kind of an homage. And I would love to continue in that direction, where I translate someone's whole oeuvre that I've been living with for many years, and try to reformulate that in myself in this other culture.
Wow, I love that.
Jennifer, if you don't mind, I wonder if you could tell us about the reception of the book in Argentina.
It's been good. Yeah, it's been really nice. I mean, so there were a lot of delays with this book, which I think, happens anywhere, but it just recently came out, and it's, yeah, people are comparing it with Witold Gombrowicz, is a Polish writer who published his first book, his first novel in Warsaw, and he got offered this amazing cruise to South America, this like free trip, and he took it. And this was in August of 1939. So he got to Buenos Aires, and Poland had been invaded, and he decided it might not be a great idea to try to go back. And he ended up staying in Buenos Aires for 23 years. Very weird writer, very, very brilliant, very interesting, totally misanthropic, but very witty. And I'm really honored to be, in the conversation that involves him. Argentines think about him a lot, I think, because he is sort of the best known foreign writer to make a home there, although he never adopted Spanish as a writing language. He continued to stick with Polish and to publish with a place called Kultura, which was in a suburb of Paris, which was just for Poles in exile over the course of communist rule. So interesting guy, and yeah, I'm happy that is coming up in the reviews.
Yes.
Very interesting.
I have a couple more questions. First of all, for Nana, there's comments from two of our judges who are listening in. Patrick Hunt says that comments that he absolutely loved your Black Friday sales story. And Lori Jaquela, who asked the question earlier, also said this is not a question, but a thank you to Nana. Your words about how the work is the thing and how everything else feels raw and strange still, and how writing it is what makes you a writer, even if you weren't born into a life that makes that seem like a viable life choice, all resonate with me so much. And things my mother said was beautiful. Thank you. But I do have a question also for Nana, coming in from Sherry Rice, who is listening in. She says, I want to ask something much more basic. How did you write the book? Did you sit down for a specific number of hours each day, like a job, or did it just all spew out of your mind very quickly? Was there an outline first? I'm very interested in the process you followed.
A great and important question. And first, to the judges, just eternally grateful for you. It's such an honor to be read so generously. It really means a lot to me. And with the question, the story collection, the answer is like, how did I write it? Like, yes, all the ways. I've had so many, a lot of it was written while I was in the MFA program, a little bit just before at Syracuse University. I'm a MFA program there, and I was really trying to figure out who I was as a writer, what I had to say, and what mattered to me. And so that was a part of it. But in terms of like my actual sitting day-to-day process, I've had spurts where I try to do 2 hours a day. I have spurts where I do 1,000 words a day. I have spurts where I am spiraling into anxiety and I can't even think about writing for a long time. That's part of my process, if you want to call it that. I wish I had a more like hygienic writing. I can't, but to me, the answer is like piece by piece, I guess, is really the answer. Piece by piece, however you can get it, you get it. And I will try to like trick myself into finding new ways. Sometimes if I think I've been writing inside too much, I like try to go outside back when outside was a thing. If I can't do that, I don't usually write to music, but then there's been certain spurts where I try to do that. So for me, it really varies dramatically from story to story, and I'm a little all over the place. A lot all over the place.
It worked, Nana, it worked.
So Nana, on that front, there's a question from Sumbul Al-Karmali, who again is one of our judges. It's not easy portraying the minority point of view, especially one that's been vilified and stereotyped, without being seen as whiny. One of the aspects of your book that was so impressive was that you accomplished this amazingly well. How did you develop your approach to this issue? Also, congratulations.
Thank you so much again. Huge honor. I think I sort of like come in by thinking about like tonally, like what the tone it is when I'm going to talk about. I think it's like, for me, in my particular case, I think I'll have like a scathing anger that I'll cut with like humor. And so rather than being, I think like the thing that would come out more than before writing would be like aggressive and mean. I think like there's a lot of stuff that makes me really upset. I was thinking about this as when I was reading this, you know, we're doing the people, this has been going on my Instagram, the trial of George Floyd. And then they're like, no, George Floyd's not the one on trial right now. This is happening right now, you know? And just that fact that like, you know, serious news outlets, the trial of George Floyd, the dead guy, he's the one on trial. You know, I could say, like, when I say something about like right now, like, it's not for me, like, it's the things I talk about, to me, they're so on their face ridiculous that I think I just employ like a certain kind of anger, or like, just look at that. Like even me just saying that, the trial of George Floyd, if I just say that a lot enough times, it gets more and more ridiculous, you know? And so I lean into that. I try to let my feelings sort of guide me. So I know I'm not talking about things that are inconsequential. I've really worked in the mall, and I'm like, you know, I think, you know, I'm not like giving the God's truth. I know that there's something wrong about people stomping on each other's heads. And but I think also another important part is like I try to implicate myself as much as possible. That is to say, I don't like, in terms of like Friday Black, the titular story, I know that I also have like tried to seek things out to love myself better, or to prove I love others through material goods, which our story is like really interrogating. So to me, it's about like, you know, letting my actual feelings be like present, and filtering them through the story as necessary, and also like knowing that I'm not like above it all either, any of it. There's like I think I'll have a capacity for a lot of harshness and meanness and, you know, all that stuff that I think my stories are interested in. And I try to put myself right in the middle of it, or my narrative is right in the middle of it, as somehow like, look at all this stuff happening down there. But for me, that's a big part of the process as well.
I want to jump back to a question that has come in that was posted really for both authors. Masha Kissel says, I love both your books so much, and they're neighbors on my bookshelf. I'm curious how you negotiate the autobiographical elements of your prose. How do you access the really difficult parts of your lives? Do you feel that you need to invent a kind of persona to manage telling the really deep truths? And to what degree do you feel the autobiographical elements in both fiction and nonfiction are performative? And it's addressed to both of you, so whoever wants to go first can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say hi, Masha, because I actually know Masha. And Masha recently published a really brilliant personal essay that I absolutely loved. In mine, so my characters have different names. Amy is my name, and Zoe is my sister's name. Although I have to say, everyone in the family agrees that Zoe is a great name for my sister. I think my parents who are watching will confirm that they now sometimes call her Zoe. I don't know if that was like probably, since this was my first book, I was also somewhat shy, and I'm kind of a shy person anyway. But it also just felt like the most truthful way of addressing these questions was to kind of freely investigate and find a tone that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how I am or how I speak on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I guess I did have to find a persona in that sense, or create a character just to be as meaningful and essential as possible.
Yeah, that resonates with me pretty deeply. And it's actually, for me, also true of other stories that might be called surrealist or speculative or whatever. To me, those conceits and those elements that are like created are always a way of me to actually get most directly to the thing I'm trying to talk about. Sometimes you almost have to go like the roundabout way to get exactly to the point, if that makes sense. And so when people ask me like, which stories feel the most connected to you, the story I read first, actually, even though the second one, thing my mother said, is like pretty much a one-to-one telling of something that happened. The first one feels most like my real life. Like if I were to, because it's about me so much, it feels the most autobiographical, whereas the other one feels like about me, but also really much about a lot about my mom. I think that sometimes though, creating characters and also like characters that are outside the obvious one. So to me, the 12-ton God is this character I talk about, but that's me. That's like the nature of my like sort of like unhealthy, like sort of not competitiveness, but also what some might be called drive or desire or artistic sort of yearning. It's many things. It's hard to reduce, which is why the character exists. Because I could just say I really want to be a writer, or I can create this thing that has this like blood ritual through which you get enfolded in this sort of lifestyle. So to me, those kind of things, those kind of characters help me say exactly what I want to say. It's almost too hard to say if I put it right in myself. Like I really, 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 really wanted it, or I could make that scene a scene like that, and I think it's felt a lot. It feels more true to me. So I really agree with what Jennifer said. Creating a character in that case, like a character that may not even be like plausible or something in reality, is my way of getting exactly to what I really felt.
There is one more question here in the Q&A for Nana, and it actually comes from Ayesha Atta, one of our finalists, who is asking Nana how the book has done in Ghana.
I'm not sure how well it's done in Ghana. When I went to Ghana, is it crazy? I went in February, right before pandemic. I didn't even think about it. It was weird. I mean, I was going for my father's homegoing stuff. So I guess, but I didn't even think about it. And I don't even, but I know it exists there in some way through like it being in like South Africa, actually. In South Africa, when I went in South Africa, it was like sort of like super well received. And I've also had like individuals that are Ghanaian and in Ghana, show so much love. But and to me that means great. But I don't know like in like a, I guess, a macro sense. But I've had a lot of Ghanaians sort of let me know that they vibed with it, which is like such an honor for me, to be honest. A real huge honor. Thank you for that question. Congrats to you.
Okay, I have another question. This one for Jennifer, and this is actually from one of our volunteer readers. Jennifer, did you consciously intend a broader analogy to immigrants feeling socially isolated because they're different when you described your own difficulties with fitting into the larger world after being homeschooled and growing up caring for your sister?
Wow, I feel like I'm getting free therapy now. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea, and it was obviously subconscious. Yeah, I mean, this was sort of like my great act of becoming Argentine. That's sort of like how of becoming both, right? So like telling the story of my origins to the people in my then adopted country, but then I keep moving around and now I'm in California. But I'm not sure actually, because I actually felt always very welcome and very at home in Argentina. So like one of the narratives of the book is about how we may have to travel a great distance in order to find our true home and in order to feel like our true selves. And that may happen in a really unexpected way. So I'll have to keep thinking about that question, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent description, Jennifer. I have to confess that In one or two cases in my travels, and I travel a lot, the first overseas trip I took, I was in Copenhagen, halfway to where I needed to go, which was Bergen, Norway. It was many, many years ago. And I stopped at the train station in Copenhagen, the main train station, where I arrived from a long trip that originated in Luxembourg. And they directed me to a kind of pensione where I could spend a night or two and then catch a train north, first to Oslo and then to Bergen. So I followed the directions of the hotel. And when I walked onto the street where the hotel, the pension existed, I felt like I had been there before. And not only had I been there, but I knew everything about it. It was eerie.
That's like a Borges story.
Exactly.
I'm gonna get that on the page.
Well, maybe someday. Listen, I'm so pleased to have heard you both read. And you're, by the way, Jennifer, your indicators that your story goes forward and your photos go in reverse makes me believe that there may be some other secrets in your book. I'll have to read it again and more closely. And Nana, I think your voice is wonderful and it's strong. And as I said before, I think you have more voices. I think you're going to have more voices, and I think that's great.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Thank you all on this webinar, this virtual celebration of the two award winners of the 9th William Saroyan International Writers Prize. I have asked Jennifer and Nana to work with us to find a way to bring them here to Stanford when we finally can get all together in person. And I hope that I'll be able to tell you all that they're here so we could have a real celebration in person, share some time together, mingle. In the meantime, I wish you all health, safety, and a continued intellectual life. This is a wonderful series of considerations of a great many writers. And the fact that so many people are writing is really good news, really good news. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Jennifer. Please do come and visit. We'll figure out how to make that happen. Thank you, Sonia and team. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you one and all, and enjoy this evening and the rest of the week and the rest of your lives. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.